Looking through the lens, I see you smiling then. I take a photograph. In my mind you'll never fade. A million winding roads. Who knows where we will go today or tomorrow. Never give up and I'll never give up on you. It's a beautiful life. There's choices that we make every single day. There's chances that we take, and I will always take a chance with you. A million winding roads. Who knows where we will go today or tomorrow. Never give up and I'll never give up on you. It's a beautiful life if you never stop dreaming. I never stop dreaming with you. It's a beautiful, beautiful life.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bryce Harris, Chancellor of the California Community Colleges, and I want to welcome you to the 14th Annual Dr. John W. Rice Diversity Awards. Now, before we get started, I'd like for you to give a warm round of applause to our entertainment this morning, Franklin Court. They disappeared. Stand up. I also want to thank some special guests who are with us this morning. Certainly our keynote speaker, who doesn't need an introduction, but we'll get a brief one a little bit later, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. And Dr. Rice's widow, Clara Rice. I also want to acknowledge Keitha Mills, the President and CEO of the Foundation for California Community Colleges, whose generosity helped support this morning's event. Okay, Keitha? I'd like to introduce a couple of members of the Assembly who are with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming from the 7th District, Roger Dickerson. Hey, Roger. And from the 9th District, Assembly Member Richard Pan. We're also very pleased to have two members of the governor's staff with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming Mona Pasquale and Sonia Hustis. And we have a representative from Senator Torres's office, Stephen Pavlov. Stephen, thank you for being here. Our honorees received some wonderful recognition from the Senate and the Assembly, which are on the table in the back, and if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to look those over. And we owe a debt of gratitude to Senator Bob Huff, Senator Lou Carrera, Assemblymember Tom DeLay, and Assemblymember Kurt Hagan, and also the Honorable Tony Adkins, the Speaker of the Assembly. Please join me in thanking them for their kindness. It's also a real pleasure this morning to introduce two people who have stood in this place previously, two former chancellors of the California Community Colleges. First of all, the chancellor who actually had Dr. Rice on his board, and when Dr. Rice passed away, it was Chancellor Nussbaum that started this activity. So Tom Nussbaum, please acknowledge his attendance. And following Tom, we have another chancellor with us, Diane Woodruff. Diane, thank you for being here. And then I turn your attention on your tables to those beautiful programs and the images of those tremendous students up and down our state. And we're really pleased to have with us this morning the faculty member from Cosumnes River College who took these images and frankly has been supplying me with images I've used in my presentations for the past 20 years, Professor Jim West of Cosumnes River. Jim? At this point, it's a pleasure for me to introduce the President of the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges, Dr. Manuel Baca. He has spent much of his life in higher education, earned his associate degree at Rio Hondo College, and returned to his alma mater as Professor of Political Science. He's a past president and current member of the Board of Trustees of Mount San Antonio Community College. Dr. Baca helped craft our system's strategic plan and was a key member of the Student Success Task Force, which led to the landmark Student Success Act of 2012. A law that already has had a tremendously positive impact on creating access for all of our students and helping them be more successful. Please join me in welcoming the President of the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges, Dr. Manuel Baca.
Thank you, Chancellor. And thank you all for being here this morning for this really, really wonderful tribute to diversity and Dr. John Rice. On behalf of the Board of Governors, I would like to welcome all of you to this event, and thank you again for attending. Before I begin with some comments and words about Dr. Rice, I would like to acknowledge members of the Board of Governors in the audience, and Arnoldo Avalos, Vice President of the Board, Jeffrey Baum, Member Joseph Belansky, Member Scott Budnick, Member Cecilia Estelano, Member Danny Hawkins, Member Lance Azumi, Member Deborah Malumed, there you are. Member Gary Reed. Member Nancy Sumner. And student member Colin Van Loon. All right, as President of the Board of Governors, I would like to discuss the award and talk about former member of the Board of Governors for whom it is named, Dr. John W. Rice, Jr. Dr. Rice was born in the segregated South in 1923. From those origins, he went on to become a minister and university leader. He earned a history degree at Johnson C. Smith University and a divinity degree. He held numerous roles during his long career as an educator, coach, teacher, and counselor. He eventually became Dean of Students at Stillman College, and from 1969 to 1985, he was a professor and served as Assistant Vice Chancellor at the University of Denver in Colorado. On behest of his daughter, he moved, who we have here, we are honored here to have here today. He moved to Palo Alto, where he held academic positions at Stanford University, and in 1989, married Clara Bailey, who we are also very honored to have join us here this morning, who we're honored to have here this morning. California Governor Pete Wilson appointed him to the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges in 1992, where he served until he passed away in 2000. Many of us here would not hold the positions we do or have done great things had we not been inspired by someone else to reach for the stars. That person may have been a parent, a spouse, or a teacher. For Dr. Rice, it was his father. He would say that his father was his greatest role model and that he impressed upon his son the importance of helping others. Dr. John W. Rice took his father's lessons to heart and in his role as board member fought for policies that ensured Californians of all stripes could get the same opportunities in obtaining an education that had catapulted him to such great heights. He was a leader, innovator, and spokesperson for equal employment opportunity and non-discrimination in the California community colleges. I read a news article in the New York Times that stated that he had been denied the right to vote as a young man during the 1950s in Alabama. That denial of a basic right as a citizen, when combined with his father's counsel, must have served as a powerful catalyst for him to fight for the rights of others to be included in all institutions of society. He wanted a world in which people should never have to experience the same bitter pill of discrimination that he had to endure, simply because of who they were and where they came from. It was a simple but powerful idea that resonates today in the California community colleges. We aim to make this institution open to all so that all can benefit from it. That is why we should make the effort to have campuses that are physically accessible to all, add captions to our course videos, establish programs that teach the value of college education to fifth graders or hire tutors and mentors to guide first-time college students. We don't want any person to feel that they don't count or that they don't matter, the way that Dr. Rice must have felt when he was told he could not vote. Dr. Rice wanted all community college students excuse me, to be treated equally, fairly, and with respect. I have enormous respect for a man who went from a place like the segregated South to eventually hold very distinguished positions at some of our nation's top universities and produce a future United States Secretary of State. And so the Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award was established to honor his proud legacy. We have recognized some amazing people in the past 14 years that this award has been given, people who have founded wonderfully creative programs which foster diversity, people who have inspired young men and women to think for themselves and to reach for the goals that may never have thought possible. I doubt any of the winners today or past winners did the things they did because they knew they might get an award for it. They did the things they did because it was the right thing to do. The true reward for an educator is to see a student learn and grow from what you've taught him or her and move on to bigger and better things. All Dr. John W. Rice wanted was for everyone to get that chance. The winners today want the same thing. And this award is our humble way of recognizing them for their achievements. Again, thank you very much for being here, and I'll turn things back over to the Chancellor. Chancellor Harris, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baca. I really want to express my gratitude and appreciation to the members of the Board of Governors who were introduced to you a moment ago. The Board of Governors, through their wisdom and guidance, is what actually allows those of us in community colleges to provide a quality education for millions of Californians. So join me again in a round of applause of appreciation for our Board of Governors. Now, as Dr. Baca mentioned, we are here today to celebrate the legacy and the vision of Dr. John W. Rice, a former member of that Board of Governors, and to present the Rice Award for Diversity to Dr. Aubrey Yamagata Noji, and to the staff of Chaffey Colley's online college education program. The winners were selected from a very competitive field of nominees. It was heartening to read about the many community college staff members who are working hard day in and day to ensure the institution remains reflective of California's diverse population. The California Community College's mission is to provide a quality education to anyone in the state who has the ambition to earn one, and that can be a very challenging mission. The state is large and diverse. Our campuses, like our state, are populated with people who hail from different ethnicities, cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds, or who speak different languages. I have personally found it wonderfully rewarding to be exposed to so many perspectives and believe this institution's diverse heritage is one of our strengths. It can be difficult to provide a good education to so many people and to ensure that they succeed, and yet our colleges do just that. So how do we do it? Well, there are many answers, and for one, it helps that we are all over this state. There are 112 of our colleges, and chances are that if there's a community college located just down the street from that man or woman who wants to go to college to get a second chance at doing something to turn their lives around. Another reason is that we offer an amazing return on investment. Our colleges can offer anyone a chance at earning great money for a relatively small investment. Statistics show that someone with a college education will earn much more money throughout the course of their career as compared to someone with only a high school diploma. Furthermore, the California Community Colleges system offers so many different educational programs. We teach everything from philosophy and nursing to biomechanics and firefighting. There is something on our campus for everyone. The incredible diversity of our courses is matched only by the diversity of our student body. Many of our students go on to earn more degrees, and eventually come back to their community colleges and help establish other academic disciplines. It's a wonderful cycle of learning. Diversity breeds more diversity. We serve more than 2 million students from an array of backgrounds. That wonderful diversity enriches our campuses and is a source of new ideas, thoughts, and ways of tackling problems. Our students naturally will have different ambitions and demands. Some of them want to transfer to four-year colleges, others want to enter the workforce immediately, while some may be learning English so they can begin to be citizens of this country. They all must succeed at these tasks, and I think it's our duty to teach them well so they do succeed. The California Community Colleges has always been up to that challenge of meeting these demands, of preparing new generations to achieve great things. But serving so many people means we have to find creative ways of attracting, retaining, and graduating successful students. The winners of this award today have shown us the answer on how to do just that. One of the winners, the online college program, enrolls fifth grade students into program and teaches them and their parents over the next 8 years how important it is for them to attend college. They help instill educational values into their enrollees and their families. It is no wonder that students in this program have higher college persistence rates than their peers. And Dr. Noji has a career-long track record of building college programs that mentor and offer tutoring and leadership development services to students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. These students have the same ambition and desire to improve their lives as any others. And thanks to our awardee and others like her, they have had the help to realize their potential. One wonders how many leaders she's developed through her decades of work in community colleges. Today's winners should be proud of their work. They responded to some of the challenges we face as educators in some innovative and resourceful ways. They have developed programs and they have graduated diverse groups of individuals who will themselves go on to inspire people in their communities to do a good job in other people's lives. And there are plenty of other innovative programs in our colleges as well. Dr. Rice was a visionary leader. He saw a growing state with millions of people, some of them very new to this country. He posed the question, would we expand or deny access for these millions of students to our colleges and universities? If we denied them, where would we be now? Dr. Rice chose a wise course, yet possibly the harder one, and fought to keep California community colleges as open and accessible as possible to anyone who wanted an education. He fought for inclusion, for access, for equality, and for diversity. History has shown that when societies include all members of their communities in the institutions, everyone benefits. When societies do not, they suffer and decline. So Dr. Rice wanted everyone to have the same opportunities to succeed so long as they had the same desire to learn. All of us in California are better as a result of his leadership. And so, judging by our winners today, I think California community colleges are definitely doing their part to ensure that all Californians have access to one of the state's most treasured institutions. Dr. Rice would be happy to know that his legacy lives on. Thank you all very much. And now it's a pleasure for me to introduce the Vice President of the Board of Governors, Dr. Jeffrey Baum. Dr. Baum?
Thank you for the promotion. Dr. Rice, Mrs. Rice, good morning, and good morning to everybody here. It really is our pleasure and our honor that our fellow board members, faculty, staff, students, administrators are here to join in this celebration. I want to thank each of you for being here, and I think I want to talk a little bit, very briefly, about what makes California community colleges special. What is unique is that anyone can attend. As Jack Scott used to always say, we accept the top 100% of students. Those of us who are work at highly selective universities, we have the benefit of working with the top 10%. At the community colleges, faculty and staff work every day to make educational opportunity accessible for the top 100% of students who are interested in going and seeking higher education. You only need a high school diploma, a desire to learn, and the dedication to see your academic journey through its completion. And by doing that, you can completely change your life. It is remarkable. Think about it. Someone can start at one of our college campuses with little or no work experience, and in a few short years, gain the education and skills necessary to move on to the University of California, California State University, Stanford, USC, where I work, or another great college or university. They can learn a valuable trade or profession like nursing, public safety, culinary arts, and earn a wonderful, rewarding, and go on to a wonderful and rewarding career. They can build their leadership skills at a community college. I met with a young man who built his leadership skills as a community college today and went on to my alma mater, Claremont McKenna College, and it was a special and a great example of that, and now he's working with the Department of Finance. Can learn how to debate or play an instrument. As long as our students are willing to learn and do the work, we can take care of the rest. The California community colleges can be a key to prosperity and intellectual advancement for those who are willing to work hard and may have no hope otherwise. That should be enormously rewarding to anyone who works at a community college. Our doors are open to everybody. And it's because of the legendary educators like Dr. John Rice and Mrs. Clara Rice that promise still holds true. So now it is my honor and pleasure to introduce you to Mrs. Clara Rice.
Thank you, Vice President Baum, for your introduction. To Chancellor Harris, President Baca, to all the legislators, members of the Board of Governors, award winners, and to everyone under the sound of my voice, good morning. And thank you for your presence here at this 14th Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Awards ceremony. Once again, I say it is truly a pleasure and an honor to witness this experience over and over and over again. Who would have imagined that this honor would be stored upon my husband, which has gone on for over a decade? What an impact he must have made on so many of you. So you can just imagine the impact that my husband left on me. There is a room in our home just for his framed pictures, certificates, plaques, books, and other memorabilia. And I must admit, even a few pieces of his clothing and personal items. I planted a garden area in the memory of my husband, of all of the flowering plants that he received during his illness. He had a potted Christmas tree in his room. He died on Christmas Eve. And I planted it in this garden, and it is now taller than our house. So you see, once you have known John Rice, there is no forgetting. And he left Kundi, his darling daughter, behind to make sure of that. So I want to thank you again for keeping his memory alive and for the work that he has done on the board with the diversity and equity in the California community colleges. Education was his love, and making sure all students had a fair advantage in getting a good education was even a greater love. I always like to tell a little story about John. This morning, I was reminded by Dr. Knight, who rode up with us, that someone had asked him some time ago, why is it you never bought a house? And he said, Kundi was our house. All of the money, you know, back then, the educators at that time did not make very much money, so what little money they had, they set their priorities that it would go to educating their daughter, and we can see that it really paid off. I would like to recognize someone that came up with Kundi and I today as to be a part of this ceremony. She was my boss when I was working as a principal, which means she was the superintendent of our school district. I didn't love her as much then as I do now. I really love her now because a few months ago, she asked me for permission to start a John W. Rice Scholarship to be given to graduating high school students who qualified and needed financial assistance to enter a higher institution of learning, which include the community colleges. This scholarship became in existence just this past April, and we have gotten enough funds to give 4 scholarships this fall, and looking forward to doing even greater things for the next year and years to come. As I've stated, the John Rice name will never be forgotten, and thank you, Dr. Knight, and to Kundi, who started this scholarship and making it possible. So, Dr. Knight, would you stand for a minute? Okay, before I take my seat, because usually when Kundi comes, I don't speak very long, I would like to acknowledge and give special thanks to 3 people here today. Keitha Mills, who we know is the president and CEO of the Foundation of the Community Colleges and has made all of this possible, even the good breakfast that you ate this morning. I didn't get a chance to eat it. I also would like to thank Paige Dorr. She works behind the scene, but she is a crackerjack. And to Jonathan Calabretta, I think that's his name. Thank you, Jonathan. These 2 people, since I no longer have, I think it was Tosh. Is he here? Tosh? Yeah. Tosh was always taking care of me to see that I knew what was going on, how to get here, what to do when I get here. So now this year, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for Paige for your help in all that you do. So again, I would like to congratulate all of you for what you've done. I'd like to congratulate all of the winners today, and I'm just anxiously waiting and eagerly waiting to hear about the fine work that you are doing. And again, thanks to all of you, and may God continue to bless you. God loves you, and so do I.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rice. Let's give Mrs. Rice another round of applause. It's now my immense pleasure to introduce another Dr. Rice. Former Secretary of State, is currently the Professor of Political Economy in the Graduate School of Business, and the Thomas and Barbara Stevenson Senior Fellow on Public Policy at the Hoover Institution and Professor of Political Science at Stanford University. From January of 2005 until 2009, she served as the 66th Secretary of State of the United States, the second woman and the first African-American woman to hold that post. She also served prior to that for President George W. Bush as Assistant to the President for National Security from January of 2001 until 2005, the first woman ever to have held that position as well. And as I understand it, she's also an excellent pianist. As President Baca noted earlier, there are people in our lives who inspire us to achieve great things, people whom we can be proud of, and Secretary of State Rice can certainly be proud of her father's many accomplishments as I'm sure he was of hers. And now please join me in welcoming former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's really a delight to join you here this morning. I am so proud and, in fact, overwhelmed at the way that the community college system continues to remember my father and to preserve his memory. I want to thank you, Chancellor Harris, and the former chancellors of the system. President Baca, thank you very much. I'm going to forgive Dr. Baum for that plug for the USC Trojans and move on, but thank you very much for being here. I would just like to say to all of you who are here, legislators, members of the staff of the governor and others, I am very grateful that you've joined us here this morning. I want to add to what Clara has said that Charlie May Knight, Dr. Charlie May Knight, was an amazing friend of my father's. She was the superintendent of Ravenswood School District for, Charlie, how many years? 21 years. Before Charlie, they had 11 superintendents in 10 years. So that gives you some sense of how successful she was in that position. When my father came to California, he came as a man who had lost much of that which he loved, most especially my mother, who died in August of 1985, and he decided to come here where his only daughter lived, to Palo Alto, and to try to remake his life. And quite frankly, I wasn't sure how well that was going to go. He had just retired from the University of Denver, and he came here, and he started over. And there were a number of things that God blessed him with that helped him to start over. He started over in meeting my wonderful stepmother, Clara Bailey. And in meeting Clara, he got a new lease on life. As you can tell, someone who is loving and kind, loved my father as he loved her, and they made a new life together. He met great friends like Charlie Knight and friends who welcomed him into the community. And thank God, Pete Wilson appointed my dad to be a member of the Board of Governors of the community college system. And that became, in many ways, the center of his professional life here in California. But it wasn't just for him a profession, it was a passion. It was indeed a mission and a calling to be a part of the community college system. The award that we give today to these fine award winners, and let me add my congratulations to you, and I look forward to hearing more. The award represents three important truths that my father carried with him very deeply. First, that there is really quite nothing more valuable than a chance at a high-quality education. This was something that he carried as a part of his own experience. My grandfather, who Dr. Baca mentioned, was indeed himself college educated. He managed to get that college education in a kind of extraordinary way. As a sharecropper's son in Utah, that would be E-U-T-A-W, I'm not kidding, Alabama, he decided that he was going to get book learning in a college. He was about 19 years old. He asked how a colored man could go to college. They told him about Little Stillman College, which was about 30 miles away. It was a Presbyterian school, and so he saved up his cotton. And he took off for Stillman College, and he paid his way through his first year, and then his second year came along, and they said, so how are you going to pay for your second year? He said, I'm out of cotton and out of money. They said, you're out of luck. He said, how are those boys going to college? They said, well, they have what's called a fellowship, a scholarship. And if you wanted to be a Presbyterian minister, you could have one too. My grandfather said, you know, that is exactly what I had in mind. And my family has been from that day forward college educated and Presbyterian. And Granddaddy Rice, I want to tell you a little bit about him because, as Dr. Baca said, he was my father's inspiration, and in many ways he was my inspiration. This was a man who took that college education that he had that Doctor of Divinity, that Masters of Divinity, which he would later acquire in seminary, and founded churches all over Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. And my grandmother and my grandfather would found a church, and right next door they would found a school. Because to their minds, the sort of substandard education that was available to black children in those southern states in the times was not to be accepted. It was to be fought, and you were to find a way around it. And those schools would attract kids from all over, from communities quite far away, because they were known for their quality. And one story perhaps says how my grandfather felt about those schools. He would raise money from whomever could give it. The parents were told to pay whatever they could, 10 cents, 50 cents, $1, whatever they could. But he would raise money in the wealthier communities, and one day, one of the wealthier white churches told him that they were going to give him a bunch of secondhand books for his school. He said, well, thank you very much, but my children need the latest books. If you'll just give me the money, I'll buy them the latest books. That's how he felt about those schools. And he passed on that passion for education to my father, and my father, from his churches, along with my mother, would go into the communities around them. And they, too, would do everything from tutoring in the church on Tuesday night to going door to door and saying to parents, you know, your child is really pretty smart and really ought to be in college, and I've just gotten a scholarship for your child to Stillman College or Knox College or Spelman College, and I want your child to go to school. My father understood the value of education, and I was grateful to have a family that understood that. Indeed, my family visited colleges like most people visited national parks. Whenever we got in a car and there was a college near, like Ohio State, which was 100 miles out of our way one day on a trip to Denver, we stopped to see a college. It wasn't a question of would I go to college, it was where. And my father understood that making that available to every child was absolutely critical. He understood a second truth. He loved this country, despite the fact that sometimes in the deep south of Jim Crow, Alabama, or Mississippi, or Louisiana, the places that he lived, it must have felt like America didn't really love him very much. But he did love this country, and he believed in its promise that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going, that you can come from humble circumstances and do great things. He recognized that the great strength of America was that that promise made we the people an inclusive concept. We the people is not limited by religion or nationality or ethnicity or blood. It is simply a promise that if you are willing to join in the aspirational narrative that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going, this country can be as much yours as the person born to wealth and circumstances of great circumstances of birth. That your circumstances, you may not be able to control them, but you can certainly control your response to them. And that in doing so, our great diversity is a strength. Because people have come from all over the world to be of that promise, to take advantage of that promise, that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going. That's why we have German Americans and Mexican Americans and Indian Americans and Korean Americans and Chinese Americans, you name it. We have Muslims and we have Jews and we have Catholics and we have Protestants. We have Baptists, and indeed we have people who believe nothing at all, but we're all Americans. And that great diversity has made us the greatest mobilizer of human potential in human history. But it's also been not just mobilizing because it didn't matter where you came from in terms of ethnicity or religion or nationality, but also because class shouldn't matter. Because the circumstances of your birth into a particular class were never meant to be your permanent circumstances at the end of your life. And again, a high-quality education was the answer to that too. Our diversity is indeed a strength, and my father understood that unless it is true that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going, we will be a weaker country. The final truth was he understood that in any democracy, a democracy is only as strong as its weakest link. That a great and mature democracy cannot be one in which the strong exploit the weak, but in which everybody draws together, not because our government demands it, but because our citizenship requires it. that individual citizen to individual citizen has a responsibility to make sure that there are no weaker links and that each and every one of us has a chance. That's what my father, John W. Rice, believed. It's why he was so proud to be a part of the community college system. He believed that the community colleges had a very special place in America's effort to make sure that every child, every human being would ultimately end up with that higher quality education. Because he understood too that when people are educated, they do control their circumstances, but they also have a responsibility to be humble, recognizing that education is not a right, it is a privilege. They have a responsibility to give back, recognizing that someone stood for them and they must stand for others. And they have a responsibility to be optimistic, because in a country that once in its constitution counted my ancestors as 3/5 of a man, it is a country that could produce, just a few hundred years later, black secretaries of state, CEOs of companies, and indeed, a black president of the United States. A pretty remarkable history we have. But it is really a history that didn't unfold that way by chance. It unfolded that way through leadership and commitment and dedication and compassion for one another. It unfolded that way through public institutions like the community college system that provided a place to go if you were willing to work hard and take that brass ring. And it unfolded that way because of the commitment and dedication of people like you, people in this room, who sustain that system and move it on. Thank you again for the memory of my father. Thank you for continuing his work. And thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you again, Dr. Rice. The Board of Governors established the Dr. John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award 14 years ago, and after Dr. Rice passed away, made this one of the top programs and events of California's community colleges. This award recognizes a community college staff member or program that has made a significant contribution toward faculty and staff diversity or student equity. Nomination forms are sent out every March, and a panel of volunteer readers from the Chancellor's Office is assembled to go through the nominations and select the winners. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not an easy job. There were several nominations this year, but 2 outstanding award recipients are with us this morning. Our first award this morning is presented to Dr. Audrey Yamagata Noji, Vice President of Student Services at Mount San Antonio College and President of the Santa Ana Unified School Board. With us this morning to make some comments about her are Amaraha Ocha, Associated Student President for Mount San Antonio College, and Renee Kuashi, former Associated Student President, who will speak on Dr. Noji's behalf about her work. Please join me in welcoming them to the podium.
Good morning. My name is May Ochoa. I am currently a sophomore at Mount San Antonio College and formerly a student body president. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but at times of challenge and controversy." This quotation exemplifies Dr. Yamagata Noji, because her passion for student success has broken barriers and established opportunities for underrepresented students. I am one of the students that have been greatly impacted by the efforts of Dr. Yamagata Noji. Before attending Mount San Antonio College, I did not believe I had the opportunity to pursue a career due to my undocumented status. Fortunately, I was able to attend Mount SAC and participate in the Bridge program, which paved a path that would bring me closer to achieving my goals. The Bridge program, established by Dr. Yamagata Noji, was a pivotal stepping stone toward my college experience. It gave me the necessary tools to significantly advance as a college freshman. The Bridge program provides its students with the support from tutors, peer advisors, counselors, and faculty. There are numerous students that have been impacted by Dr. Yamagata Noji, by Dr. Yamagata Noji's leadership and commitment. She has been a pioneer of many programs that ensure student equity and success. Among these programs are the Aspire program, which targets African American students, the Arise program, which targets Asian and Pacific Islander students, the Disabled Students Programs and Services, and the International Student Center. All of these endeavors are a clear commitment to diversity and show that Dr. Yamagata Noji is a person of action and not only words. Combined, these programs have tremendously helped hundreds of underrepresented students from different backgrounds who have had to overcome many hardships. As a peer of many of these students, I have heard countless success stories that credit the very purpose of these programs. This past year, I had the privilege to work alongside Dr. Yamagata Noji on an issue that directly impacts me and many other students. At the beginning of my term as student body president, I had approached Dr. Yamagata Noji to express the importance of creating a designated center for underrepresented students such as AB 540 and LGBTQ to receive the resources necessary to be successful at Mount SAC. Without a doubt, Dr. Yamagata Noji has worked hard to make the establishment of this center a reality and has given me the opportunity to participate in the efforts she is leading to create the space. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for all of your dedication and support to hundreds of students, and most importantly, for inspiring me to dream out loud. You are a warrior and an advocate for change. Thank you.
If you ask any successful person, they'll always tell you that there were people along the way who helped them. These people I call success story makers. And today, we're here to honor Audrey Yamagata Noji, my success story maker. See, getting an education is a life experience. And much like anything else in life, there are ups and there are downs. But especially for those students whose realities are consumed with hardships, we need those educators who will be willing to put the overtime hours even without pay, or those who will be able to do beyond their job descriptions just to make sure that we understand our potential, just to make sure that we're doing what's right in order to reach our goals and success, just to make sure that we're doing all right in our personal lives. Audrey Yamagata Noji did all that for me. It wasn't enough for her to know my name. It wasn't enough for her to know my struggles and my story. It wasn't enough for her to have her doors open for me and always making sure that I was doing all right. It wasn't enough for her to always tell me, you'll be fine. She has been there for me every time. I didn't even have to ask her. In 2011, I was one of 56 students nationwide to receive the Jack Kent Cooke Undergraduate Transfer Scholarship, a $30,000 a year scholarship until you graduate. That same year, I transferred to Claremont McKenna College, where I received my bachelor's degree in government last year. And today, I'm an executive fellow at the California Department of Finance. I would never have been here. I would never have been here if not for her dedication and that of her staff, who are today my extended family. It's my honor, my privilege to honor you today, Audrey.
Dr. Audrey Namagochi Nyoji. This is heavy, be careful.
Japan, Hawaii, California, Wyoming, Arkansas concentration camps, Long Beach, father gardener, mother seamstress. Growing up, inequities, racial strife, counselor, denied access to honors, counselor, senior year, developmental reading, lab assistant, Spanish language, low SAT scores. Counselor, you're not college material. But college, lost, lonely, first generation, low income, intimidated, determined, access, opportunity. Counselor, educator, equity for all students. Husband, Jean. Teacher, football coach, leader. Son, Randall, football coach, videographer. Future educator, maybe. Wind beneath my wings. Passion, student success, focus, the underrepresented, the underserved. Colleagues, a team effort. Colleagues, the best. Colleagues, friends, support system. Students, our motivation. Students, our inspiration. Students, providing meaning and purpose to all of our lives. Students, touching our lives deeply by their strength, their successes. Community colleges, opportunity. Community colleges, embracing. Community colleges, a second chance. Community colleges, making a difference. Community colleges, necessary. Community colleges, changing lives. Our students, fears, apprehension, past lives, life conditions, loneliness, poverty, tears, residency issues, far from home. Statistics, bad statistics, lack of role models, lack of support, lack of knowledge, being the first, no one to lead the way. Students of color, cultural diversity, basic skills, disenfranchised, first generation college. Disabled, veterans, English language learners, low income, single parents, undocumented, international students, gender identity, challenges, opportunities, all our students. Recognition, start early. Collaboration, elementary to high school. Parents, supported entry, high school priority enrollment, summer bridge, learning communities, step to college, cash for college. Peer advising, supplemental instruction, study groups. Clearer pathways, dedicated efforts. 4.5-hour counseling orientations. 17,000 electronic education plans to date. Basic skills bridge program. Proactive. Veterans Resource Center, Foster Youth Support, AB 540 Center. International Student Center. Collective, focused energy. Counselor instructional faculty partnerships. Seamless processes, creativity, unique designs. Aspire, arise, achieving in college, ensuring success, EOPS, DSPS, CARE, CalWORKS, models of excellence, student engagement, student involvement, student leadership development, instructional breakthroughs, mastery of subjects, transfer level math, cultural sensitivity, innovative support interventions, falefono, commitment ceremonies, improved conditions, disabled students' access, accommodations, professional development, advocacy, recognition, safe places, transformational. Mount San Antonio College, a welcoming college, a sense of community, a feeling of belonging, fostering engagement, empowering, transformed students, basic skills to start, honors to complete, enhanced self-confidence, student leaders, source of strength, a team approach, a voice for the voiceless, breaking the cycle of poverty, a feeling of hope, a sense of pride, a collective force, a culture of inclusion. Dr. John W. Rice, leader, innovator, dedicated, visionary, advocate, non-discrimination, equity, multicultural learning. John W. Rice Diversity Award. Humbled, honored, overwhelmed, blessed, not just about me, colleagues, students, leadership, shared commitment, shared work, shared results, shared recognition, gratitude, a lifetime of gratitude. Thank you all for your role, for your many contributions, for your caring, for your sacrifices, to your dedication, for your service, and for making a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Audrey. Our final award this morning is presented to Chaffey College's Online to College program. Their work has done much to improve college attendance rates of young men and women in Montclair. Accepting the award this morning is Lee McDougall, Chaffey College Governing Board President, Osmara Cortez Tejada, Online College graduate, and Edmund Garcia, a student currently enrolled in Online College program. Please join them, or welcome them to the podium.
Good morning. How's everyone this morning? Let me compliment the facility here, because I have a podium and a microphone that's almost long enough. It almost does the trick, but I don't have to bend over. It's an honor to be here today to accept the award on behalf of Chaffey College and the Online to College program. It is with pleasure I introduce the people here today representing the Online to College program. This program is successful because of our outstanding partnerships we have with the city of Montclair and the school districts of our area. First, I'd like to introduce, I believe, the finest superintendent president in the California system. That would be Dr. Henry Shannon. Our Director of Online to College Program and Marketing Director at Chaffey College, Peggy Cartwright. Online to College Apprentice and the person that does the day-to-day work in the program, Linda Olmos. From the city of Montclair, a critical partner in the Online to College program, I'd like to introduce the First Lady of Montclair. She happens to be the mayor's wife, my former boss, and she is the Online to College founder, Mrs. Ginger Eaton. Thank you. Our Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Montclair, Marcia Richter. Third partner in the program, representing the Chaffee Joint Union High School District, board member and president of the Chaffee College Foundation, Sue Ovid. Without these two young people, there wouldn't be a program, and you will hear from them shortly. Omera Cortez Tejada and Edmund Garcia. In my 14 years on the Chaffee College Governing Board, the college has earned several awards, but this one is very, very special to me. In 1997, I was the city manager of the city of Montclair. That's when I worked. And a board member on the Chaffee College Foundation. Our city had recently created the Montclair Community Collaborative with the purpose of analyzing the needs of our city and making recommendations on ways to improve it. A few members of that collaborative presented an idea of creating a program to improve the college-going rate in our city. And at the time, the college-going rate was very low, and I think in the program more adequately describes it as dismal, and it was dismal at the time. Two of the community collaborative members were employed at Chaffee College. One couldn't be here, Dr. Inger Pelzer, the other, Mrs. Ginger Eaton. They, along with Dr. Mooney from the Ontario Montclair School District, presented their idea, and it was named Online to College. These women were then and remain very passionate about education and providing students the opportunity to attend college. As a city manager, I completely supported the program. And my task was to create a funding source to fund full scholarships for every graduating senior of Montclair High School that wanted to go to Chaffee College. No small task, and it was done. So every student completing the program and graduating from Montclair High School is eligible to receive a 2-year, fully paid scholarship to Chaffee College. The program launched in 1998 with the first class of 5th grade students at 3 Montclair elementary schools. So the program, to get in the program, it starts at the 5th grade. We follow the students all the way through to graduation. If you stay in the program, you graduate, you get enrolled at Chaffee College, we pay for it. It's kind of that simple. We pay your tuition and books. The schools were selected based on social economic needs and diversity. Almost all the students were on free or reduced breakfast and lunch plans, and more than 95% of our students are Hispanic. Program representatives provided outreach and social services to students and their families, and I think that's mentioned in the brochure on your table, beginning with the program all the way through the 12th grade. Frequently, I speak to parents of students in the program, and it is rewarding to hear them say the program has provided their families with hope for their future. In 2006, the dreams of Mrs. Eaton and Dr. Pelzer and Dr. Mooney came true when the first class of Online to College students graduated from Montclair High School. That year, 32 students accepted scholarships and enrolled at Chaffee College. Program representatives have tracked the college-going rate of Online to College students, and we can report that 65% of Online to College students graduating from Montclair High School in 2013 attended a college or a university. As of today, more than 50% of the Online to College students in the 2014 class have accepted the scholarships and plan to attend Chaffee College in the fall. What's really significant about the program, at least in my opinion, the city of Montclair has a population of 36,000, roughly. And there have been 5,400 students that have gone through the program, and over 3,000 of those students have had their college paid for through the program since the beginning of the program. The Online to College program provides support and services and information not only to the students, but to their families as well. since the creation of the program, the culture in our schools and in the city has changed. Students and their parents are talking about higher education where that didn't exist before, and their futures, while the siblings are being role models to their brothers and sisters by going to college. As the president of the Chaffey College Governing Board, our board, our administration, faculty, and staff are committed to creating and promoting programs that support equity and diversity and improve student success. It is with great pleasure that I introduce the two students that you've already met this morning from the Online to College program. They are participants and graduates, and we'll start with Osmara.
The microphone's a bit too tall for me. Good morning. I'm Osmara Cortez. Thank you, President McDowell and the committee for recognizing Chaffey College and the Online to College program for this award. This program has changed my life and my family's life in so many ways. I remember first being introduced to the program when I was in 5th grade. We took a field trip to the campus, and I was excited to someday take classes at Chaffey. From a young age, I've always aspired to be a teacher, and throughout my education, that aspiration keeps on growing. Due to my immigration status, pursuing a higher education was quite a bit out of my league. I wasn't born in the U.S. My parents moved to California when I was 3. But it wasn't until my senior year in high school that I became fully aware of my status. I was in the AVID program. I was accepted to UCR and University of Laverne, but I was not able to attend due to financial reasons. So my journey at Chaffey College began. I accepted the scholarship for the Online to College program 3 years ago. I remember first sitting in my first college course class thinking, no way, I didn't picture myself in going to college. I am pleased to share with you that I graduated this May with an associate's degree in social and behavioral sciences, along with an education paraprofessional level 2 certificate. My family has been a huge support system, and I thank them for them, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gone this far. I also want to give a special thanks to the Online to College staff for their guidance. They guided me through the difficult process of navigating through college, from choosing my classes to finding the bookstore, even the bus stop. So I will be attending Cal State San Bernardino in the fall and continue to pursue my teacher journey. I hope to one day be a teacher at the city of Montclair. I want to give back to the community and the city that opened great doors for me, but most importantly, invested in me and my education. Thank you for letting me share my experiences with you today.
There we are. My name is Edmund Garcia, and I too am a student in the Online to College program and had the privilege of being a recipient of the Chaffey College Scholarship. My story is a bit different yet similar to Osmara's. My parents attended college, and throughout my life, I knew I would someday have the opportunity to gain a higher education as well. I too remember being introduced to the Online to College program in the 5th grade. The field trip to the Chaffey College was memorable and exciting. We visited classrooms, zoology lab, art museum, and also had a great time running on the track. In middle school, we were reminded by our teachers and the Online to College staff to make smart choices. Of course, we all did. In high school, I prepared for college and looked forward to the future. My senior year was a bit chaotic because the choices that I would make would affect my life. I questioned myself about what to do after high school and whether I was making the right choices. I had the grades to go to a 4-year university, but my financial circumstances didn't allow me to pay for the higher tuition and fees. I'm thankful to have been given the opportunity to attend Chaffey College with this scholarship. I feel like this scholarship is much more than funding my education. The staff instills the idea that there's always a way to reaching your goals. They're there pushing me to work hard and succeed. I'm studying computer science at Chaffey College, and hopefully next year I'll be transferring to Cal Poly Pomona, where I plan to earn a bachelor's degree. My academic goal for my educational career is earning a doctorate's degree. This year will be exciting because my sister will be attending Chaffey College. She's also a recipient of the scholarship. Says that I have to show her the ropes, but she'll be successful on her own. The Online to College program has opened so many doors for me. The program has not only changed my life, but has changed the lives of others, and hopefully generations to come. Thank you for letting me share my story and experiences of Chaffey College's Online to College program, and for recognizing this program for its contributions to students and our community. Thank you.
Another round of applause for both our honorees. This concludes our program this morning, but I want to again thank Mrs. Rice and Dr. Rice. Please join me again in thanking them. And I'd like to ask all the members of the Chancellor's Office staff who have volunteered over the last several weeks for this activity to please stand so we can acknowledge you. Stand up in the back. Thank you. As you can imagine, an event like this doesn't come together overnight, and those folks worked long and hard, including all day yesterday and early this morning. This concludes our program, and again, I want to thank all of you for being here. California's community colleges continue a wonderful tradition of support of diversity, not only in colleges, but in our students up and down this state. We are convinced that California's future is a bright one, mainly because of all the work done by many of you and all your colleagues in California's community colleges. Thank you all for being here.